Have you ever wondered why some people, even well into their 90s, still walk with a sense of steadiness and grace, while others of the same age struggle to rise from a chair or feel as though each step is a battle? This is not merely a question of biology, it is a question of destiny. Meet Evelyn, a 91-year-old woman whose eyes still sparkle with the fire of youth, but whose legs once betrayed her. For years, she dreaded the simple act of standing, as if gravity itself had grown heavier with time. Walking across the room left her winded, and stairs seemed like mountains that could no longer be climbed. Her story mirrors the quiet struggle of millions of older adults. Weak legs, trembling muscles, the slow decline that robs not just strength but dignity and independence. Most accept this as the inevitable toll of aging. But here's the shocking truth. Weakness is not destiny. It is often a deficiency, overlooked and misunderstood. Evelyn once believed her best days were behind her, that the frailty in her legs was a sign she was nearing life's quiet end. But what she discovered proved otherwise. She found that her body, though older, was not finished. It was waiting to be given the right fuel, the right signals, the right nourishment to awaken what time had only dulled. And when she made one small change, something remarkable happened. The trembling in her legs subsided. The fatigue that had haunted her steps began to lift. Within weeks, Evelyn felt her balance returning, like the ground beneath her had finally steadied. She even found herself doing something she thought she would never do again, climbing the staircase in her home, step by careful step, with a smile of triumph. What if the secret to strength in old age is not found in grueling workouts or expensive pills, but in the simplest of gifts? Nutrients that nature has always provided, yet which we too often neglect. In this journey, we will explore 6 essential vitamins, 6 hidden keys that can restore the strength of your legs, rekindle your energy, and return to you something priceless: the freedom to move, the independence to live fully, and the confidence to stand tall at any age. Stay with me until the end, because the final vitamin, often ignored, often underestimated, has the power to change not only your legs, but your entire outlook on aging. The story begins with light itself, the ancient gift of the sun, the first and most powerful vitamin of them all. For Evelyn, the first step in reclaiming her strength began not with a pill, but with something as ancient as life itself: sunlight. For centuries, cultures revered the sun as the giver of vitality. The Egyptians worshipped Ra, the Greeks honored Helios, and entire civilizations built temples aligned with the rising dawn. They may not have known the term vitamin D, but they instinctively understood that sunlight carried something sacred, something essential to human strength. Science now reveals what ancient wisdom intuited. Vitamin D is the master switch for bone and muscle health. It allows calcium, the very mineral of strength, to be absorbed and locked into the skeleton. Without it, bones become fragile, muscles weaken, and balance falters. For the elderly, this is not a distant threat. It is the daily reality of legs that tire too quickly, joints that ache, and bodies that stumble where they once strode with confidence. Evelyn remembered the signs well. By evening, her calves often cramped, her thighs felt heavy, and a subtle aching fatigue haunted her steps. She thought this was simply old age, whispering its limits. In truth, her body was crying out for the sunlight it no longer received. Why? Because as we age, our skin loses its ability to efficiently convert sunlight into vitamin D. A short stroll in the park, once enough to nourish the body with this vital nutrient, no longer suffices. That is why deficiency becomes so common among the elderly, quietly draining strength until simple tasks feel monumental. But here lies the beauty. The remedy is not complex. It is found in both nature and tradition. Fatty fish like salmon and mackerel, eggs and fortified dairy all contain this elusive nutrient. Yet the most extraordinary source, as Evelyn discovered, is something both humble and powerful: cod liver oil. Just 1 tablespoon carries enough vitamin D to transform frailty into firmness, instability into steadiness. When Evelyn began adding it to her morning routine, she noticed something remarkable. The cramps that once woke her at night began to fade, her energy steadied, and for the first time in years, she felt her legs obeying her again. It was as though her body had been waiting for this forgotten fuel, like a parched field finally touched by rain. Strength, once thought lost, began to return. Vitamin D is not simply a supplement, it is a covenant between the human body and the sun. A reminder that vitality is not reserved for youth but can be rekindled at any age, if only we listen to what our body hungers for. For Evelyn, this was the opening key. But strength does not live in bones alone. It depends on the spark that animates them, the delicate communication between nerve and muscle, and for that, the body turns to another silent power, vitamin B12. If vitamin D was the sunlight that fortified Evelyn's bones, then vitamin B12 became the hidden spark that reawakened her body's wiring. There was a time when Evelyn would rise from her chair only to feel her legs tremble beneath her. On some mornings, she felt steady and sure-footed. On others, her steps betrayed her, shaky, uncertain, as though her own body had forgotten how to respond. It was not merely weakness, it was miscommunication, a broken dialogue between her brain and her muscles. That dialogue depends on vitamin B12. This single nutrient governs the production of red blood cells, the delivery of oxygen, and the health of the myelin sheath, the insulating layer around our nerves. Without it, signals travel like electricity through frayed wires, weak, delayed, sometimes failing altogether. The result? Muscles that hesitate, legs that feel heavy, and the unsettling pins and needles that creep through the limbs. For Evelyn, it was a mystery at first. Why did her legs feel so inconsistent? Strong one day, unsteady the next. The answer was not in her willpower, but in her blood. With age, the stomach produces less acid, making it harder to extract B12 from food. Even with a balanced diet, older adults often slip into deficiency without ever realizing it. And yet, the consequences are profound. Studies link B12 deficiency not only to fatigue and muscle weakness, but also to memory loss, depression, and nerve damage. It is the invisible thief that robs strength in silence. But Evelyn's story took a turn. On the advice of her doctor, she began introducing rich sources of B12 back into her life: eggs, fish, and the occasional serving of beef. Still, the breakthrough came with something unexpected: nutritional yeast. Golden and savory, she sprinkled it over her soups and vegetables. It was a small act, hardly noticeable, yet within weeks she felt the difference. Her legs no longer carried that unpredictable heaviness. The tingling that once visited her at night began to fade. Her steps regained rhythm, as though the wires of her body had been repaired and reconnected. Vitamin B12 is more than a nutrient. It is a reminder that even the mightiest machine requires a spark to come alive. Without it, the human body becomes like a city in blackout, its lights flickering, its power drained. With it, strength returns, clarity sharpens, and vitality flows. For Evelyn, B12 restored not only her steadiness, but her confidence. She no longer feared. But muscles and nerves are only part of the story. The very scaffolding that holds the body together, the tendons, ligaments, and cartilage, also requires its own guardian. And this is where the most overlooked yet vital architect enters: vitamin C. If vitamin D built Evelyn's foundation and vitamin B12 restored the spark, then vitamin C became the architect, quietly reconstructing the framework that held her body together. For months, Evelyn awoke to the same stubborn stiffness. Her knees resisted movement, her ankles ached after short walks, and recovery from even gentle activity took days. She thought her joints had simply aged out, destined to ache as the years marched on. But in truth, her body was running low on the very substance that gives structure to life: collagen. Collagen is the hidden scaffolding beneath the skin, the cables and beams of the human body. It holds cartilage flexible, ligaments resilient, and tendons strong. Without it, joints creak, movements stiffen, and pain becomes a constant companion. And the master craftsman that forges this collagen? Vitamin C. We often associate vitamin C with immunity, citrus fruits, and staving off the common cold. Yet history tells a deeper story. Sailors of old, adrift for months at sea, developed scurvy, a terrifying illness where teeth fell out, wounds refused to heal, and joints collapsed under weakness. The cure was not exotic medicine, but lemons and limes, a reminder that vitamin C is not simply a shield against illness. It is the very material with which the body repairs itself. Evelyn's life was not as dramatic as the sailor's, but the parallels were real. Her lack of resilience after movement, her soreness, her declining flexibility, all pointed to a deficiency of this quiet architect. So, she turned to nature's orchard. Oranges and grapefruits became her companions. Strawberries found their way into her morning bowl, and bell peppers, crisp and colorful, returned to her plate. But the real shift came when she discovered acerola cherry powder. Just a spoonful mixed into water delivered a surge of vitamin C far beyond what a single orange could provide. Within weeks, Evelyn noticed the change. Her joints moved with less resistance. The soreness that once lingered now faded overnight. It felt as if her body's scaffolding had been mended, the old beams reinforced, the worn-out ropes tightened once more. She began to walk farther, climb higher, and recover faster, her body echoing the resilience of its youth. But vitamin C's gift extended even further. As a potent antioxidant, it fought the free radicals that had been quietly inflaming her tissues, accelerating her decline. With this burden lifted, her body could finally heal, not just endure. Vitamin C was not simply about joints or stiffness. It was about mobility itself, the freedom to move without fear, to rise each morning knowing her body would answer her will. For Evelyn, it was the difference between enduring life and embracing it. Yet even as collagen fortified her frame, another truth emerged. Bones are not strengthened by calcium alone. Without guidance, calcium can betray the body, hardening arteries instead of fortifying legs. And so, Evelyn's journey brought her to an unsung hero, one often overlooked but essential, vitamin K2. Evelyn had always heard the same advice: drink your milk, get your calcium. For decades, she believed that calcium alone was the secret to strong bones. But as she learned, calcium without guidance can become a double-edged sword. Strong bones are not built by calcium simply entering the body. They are built by calcium reaching the right place. And this is where vitamin K2 steps in, the silent guardian that few talk about, but without which strength begins to falter. Imagine calcium as an army of raw materials. Left unchecked, they scatter, depositing themselves where they do not belong: arteries, joints, even soft tissues. Instead of reinforcing bones, they create stiffness, brittleness, and blockages. But with vitamin K2, those materials are guided, delivered precisely to the fortress of bone where they are needed most. Evelyn's story reflected this hidden truth. For years, she had consumed dairy and even supplements, but still felt her legs unsteady, her bones fragile. What she didn't realize was that the builder had no map. Calcium wandered aimlessly until K2 arrived to direct the flow. Where did she find this elusive guardian? Not in the usual staples of her pantry. Vitamin K2 hides in fermented foods like natto, a Japanese delicacy few in the West embrace, or in aged cheeses, sauerkraut, and grass-fed butter. At first, these seemed unusual, but Evelyn discovered a simple, almost indulgent addition: a spoonful of golden, grass-fed ghee. Rich, smooth, and comforting, it became her daily ritual. Within months, the results were subtle yet profound. The fragility she once feared began to fade. She rose from chairs with steadier legs, her balance sharpened, her bones no longer whispering of fracture with every movement. She felt as though the very frame of her body had been reforged, its foundation strengthened not just by calcium, but by the silent guidance of K2. And beyond the science, there was symbolism. Evelyn reflected on how often in life the most crucial roles are played by those unseen, the quiet protectors, the overlooked allies. Just as vitamin K2 worked invisibly within her, so too had unseen forces in her life guided her through hardship, ensuring she stood firm even when she thought she might fall. Her bones were no longer a source of fear. They had become a source of confidence. But stability required more than structure. Muscles must contract and release with rhythm. Energy must flow without interruption. For that, the body depends on a mineral as vital as breath itself: magnesium. Even with strong bones and steady joints, Evelyn often found her legs betraying her in another way: fatigue. By late afternoon, her muscles felt like sandbags. Some nights, her calves cramped so sharply they woke her from sleep, leaving her gasping in the dark. What she didn't know then was that her body was signaling a profound need for magnesium. Magnesium is not flashy. It does not receive the same attention as calcium or vitamin C, yet it is woven into nearly every movement we make. It is the mineral of rhythm, the unseen conductor of the muscular symphony. Every contraction, every release, every surge of energy in the muscle fibers depends on its presence. Without it, muscles seize, circulation slows, and even the smallest effort feels like exhaustion. Evelyn described it best. It was like my body wanted to move, but the energy didn't arrive on time. Science confirms her experience. Low magnesium disrupts more than muscle. It weakens nerve signals, depletes endurance, and saps motivation. Even the restless leg syndrome that so many older adults suffer at night is often tied to magnesium's absence. When Evelyn finally began to replenish her stores, the transformation was quiet but unmistakable. She didn't start with supplements. Instead, she embraced foods rich in magnesium, leafy greens, almonds, whole grains. Yet the simplest, most powerful change came from something humble and almost playful: pumpkin seeds, just a spoonful each day. Within weeks, her nights grew calmer. The stabbing cramps eased, her muscles relaxed, and the heaviness that once haunted her legs began to lift. Her steps carried more vitality, her recovery after walks shortened. She felt not just stronger, but freer. Magnesium became, for Evelyn, a symbol of flow. It reminded her of an orchestra tuning before a great performance. Without the conductor, the instruments faltered. With magnesium, her body played in harmony once more. But muscle and bone are only part of the story. Energy must flow not just within the body, but through it, carried by the rivers of circulation. And for Evelyn, the final piece of her puzzle was found in a vitamin that kept those rivers alive and strong: vitamin E. By the time Evelyn had strengthened her bones, steadied her joints, and restored her muscles, there was still one barrier she had yet to overcome: circulation. Her legs often felt cold, heavy, and swollen after sitting too long, as if the very lifeblood of her body had slowed to a crawl. She would rub her calves, hoping to coax warmth back into them, but the relief never lasted. The truth was that her body's rivers, the intricate highways of blood carrying oxygen and nutrients, were not flowing as they once had. And this is where vitamin E entered her story. Vitamin E is not just a nutrient. It is a guardian of circulation. It thins the blood naturally, keeping vessels open and flexible, allowing oxygen to travel freely to every muscle fiber. It acts as an antioxidant, shielding delicate arteries from the slow corrosion of oxidative stress. Without it, blood thickens, vessels stiffen, and the legs become deserts starved of nourishment. Evelyn felt the change when she began adding simple vitamin E-rich foods to her diet: almonds in her morning oatmeal, sunflower seeds as an afternoon snack, slices of creamy avocado on toast, and occasionally a golden spoonful of wheat germ oil, the most concentrated source of all. The results surprised her. Within weeks, the coldness in her feet diminished, her legs felt lighter, and she could sit for longer without that throbbing heaviness. Walking no longer drained her as quickly. It was as if the rivers had been unclogged, flowing once more with life. Science explains it clearly, but Evelyn described it more beautifully. It felt as though my legs were finally alive again, not tired branches, but roots drawing strength from deep waters. Circulation is more than a biological function. It is the very essence of vitality. Youth is not just strong muscles or flexible joints. It is the free flow of energy through every vessel, and vitamin E, for Evelyn, restored that flow. Her journey, however, was not just about nutrients and biology. With each discovery, Evelyn realized something profound. These vitamins were metaphors. Each one told a story, not just of physical strength, but of life, resilience, and the overlooked truths that allow us to thrive at any age. And so, her journey carried her toward a greater reflection, the philosophy of nutrition itself, and what it means to age not with fear but with wisdom. As Evelyn's journey unfolded, she began to see that these vitamins were more than molecules, more than supplements on a shelf. They were symbols, each one carrying a deeper truth about life itself. Vitamin D reminded her that strength begins with light, and that even in her 90s, she could still draw power from the same sun that nurtured her as a child. Vitamin B12 was the spark, proof that even when communication falters, between nerves, between people, it can be restored. Vitamin C rebuilt the scaffolding of her body, a lesson that no matter how weathered the temple, its pillars can be reinforced. Vitamin K2 taught her that guidance matters as much as strength, for power without direction becomes destructive. Magnesium gave her rhythm, reminding her that harmony, not force, sustains endurance. And vitamin E restored the flow, echoing that life itself is movement, circulation, the endless current that nourishes and renews. She realized that aging is not decay, it is adaptation. It is the body whispering, "Care for me differently now. I do not need punishment or endless struggle. I need nourishment, wisdom, and patience." Too often, society treats aging as a slow surrender, a retreat from vitality. But Evelyn's story revealed another possibility. Aging can be an apprenticeship in resilience. It teaches us to trade recklessness for intention, to replace sheer force with subtle care, to find power not in denial of age, but in harmony with it. There was also a psychological truth unfolding. Weakness had once made Evelyn feel small, dependent, even invisible. But as her legs regained strength, something far greater was restored: her confidence. She no longer avoided stairs, no longer hesitated to walk across a crowded room. She stood straighter, walked taller, spoke with renewed conviction. Her body had not just been healed, it had been reclaimed. In her quiet reflections, Evelyn began to see aging as a mirror of life itself. Youth teaches us speed. Age teaches us endurance. Youth gives us energy. Age gives us wisdom to direct that energy. And nutrition, the overlooked everyday act of feeding the body, is the bridge between the two. Each bite, each choice, was no longer just about health. It was about freedom. The freedom to move without fear, the freedom to live without constant pain, the freedom to remain herself, unshaken by the passing years. This was the hidden philosophy of nutrition, that caring for the body is not vanity, but reverence. It is honoring the vessel that carries us through every joy, every hardship, every moment of life. For Evelyn, the lessons of vitamins had become lessons of existence itself, and now her journey carried her to its final chapter, the triumph that proved weakness was never her fate. Evelyn was 91 when she first believed her strength was gone for good. The stairs mocked her, her chair felt like a prison, and every step reminded her of the fragility she feared most. But then, piece by piece, she discovered the truth, that weakness was not her destiny, only her deficiency. With sunlight, she awakened her bones. With B12, she sparked her nerves. With vitamin C, she rebuilt her scaffolding. With K2, she gave her strength direction. With magnesium, she restored her rhythm. And with vitamin E, she set her rivers flowing again. The result was not a miracle, but a transformation, a return of what she had thought lost. One morning, with a quiet smile and steady resolve, Evelyn placed her hand on the banister of her staircase. Where once she had trembled, now she climbed. Step by step, her legs lifted her higher, carrying not just her body, but her spirit. At the top, she turned, breathless not from weakness but from triumph. Her story is not rare. It is a mirror of what could be for anyone willing to listen to the body's quiet requests. Aging does not mean surrendering your independence, your mobility, your dignity. It means adapting, nourishing, and unlocking the resilience that still lives within you. And so, this is your invitation. Don't wait for weakness to dictate your story. Begin now. Fill your days with the simple gifts nature has always offered. These 6 essential vitamins that strengthen your bones, fuel your muscles, and set your circulation free. Because your legs are not just limbs. They are your foundation. They carry you across rooms, through doorways, into the world. They carry your independence, your confidence, your very story. And if you feed them well, they will carry you further than you ever dreamed, whether at 61, 81, or even, like Evelyn, at 91. The choice is yours. Rise, nourish, reclaim.